A new Pop TV original series set in Clearwater, Florida, follows 4 women trying to navigate life's curveballs below the poverty line. It's called Florida Girls. Take a look.
No one's ever moved away before. What if we went back to school and got out of Florida like Mandy did? Think about it, all we do is like get hammered and do dumb crap.
You can't blame alcohol for being a bad rollerblader.
We're staying in Florida forever.
You can't even afford to finish your tattoo.
Sorry, I'm not a billionaire.
279.
Is this seriously all we have? I was actually thinking about getting my GED. I'm smart, right?
But bam!
You look like a really expensive prostitute.
No, don't compliment her.
Sorry. Joining me now to talk about the series with an all-female cast is Laura Chinn. She's a real-life Floridian, and she's also the creator of the show. And, of course, you just saw her. She's one of the stars. Welcome.
Yes, hi.
Okay, so I was laughing throughout the entire trailer. I mean, if that's what the show is going to be all about, that's really funny.
That's the
but
show.
That's taken from real life, right?
Yes. Like very, very much taken from real life. Yeah.
So did you have to, I mean, take me through the writing process. I mean, what was it like taking things that have probably happened to you, your friends, in your personal life and putting them on the screen?
I think for the past 10 years I've been writing this show because every time I tell a story about Florida, people are like, oh my God, that's a show. So I've just been like writing down every detail that comes up. And a lot of the writing was me just like telling a story from childhood and writers being like, okay, we got to do an episode about that. So yeah, it was mostly just pulling up those details and yeah.
Yeah, well, there's something unique about Florida, right? I mean, I know that the rest of the country, I spent a couple of years in my childhood in Florida with grandparents, as a lot of people will, those of us who are born on the East Coast, have a lot of grandparents that live in Florida.
Yes.
And there is something unique about Florida that isn't like other states, even other states in the region in the South.
Yeah, I think it's weirdly because Florida has so much of everything kind of jammed into the state. Like every part of America is jammed into Florida, and it makes for so much diversity and such crazy headlines. Because there is like so many retirees, but there's also like Miami is like a huge like, you know, Latin culture.
Right.
And the town that I grew up in was like 50% black, 50% white. There's like poverty, and then there's like extreme wealth, and everyone's kind of living up against each other. It's a very interesting place to grow up.
Yeah, and so looking at these characters here that we have on the screen, describe like in a nutshell the 4 of them and like where they're coming from and how this mix of characters is indicative of your experiences growing up in Florida.
Yeah, I mean, I think like I grew up in kind of in like a lower income neighborhood, and I went to a high school with people that were like, I think predominantly lower income, but then there's also like the outskirts of people that have a ton of money. And I think that like the one thing that my friend group and I had in common when I was looking back on it is that none of us had dads. Like we all came from single parent households, so none of us had curfews and none of us had restrictions, and like we're all so different in so many ways, but the thing we had in common was this like wild kind of free behavior that made for a very interesting television show.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
So one of the plots in the show is Shelby wanting to get her GED,
Yeah.
but the support isn't 100%, which
No.
you would think that, hey, the very bare minimum is get that GED, but
Yeah.
that's a plot point. We want to play a little bit of that.
Yeah.
Well, 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 look who decided to show up. I can't wait to hear where you've been all day.
Help, Shelby, I'm trapped. I know, I'm sorry. Girl, never mind, I'm good.
So what happened here?
What happened here is that we took acid because we wanted to have a fun day at the water park, but then we didn't have a car. So we've been trapped in this sweatbox and scared out of our minds because there's bees everywhere. Meanwhile, you've been out having the time of your life without any bees doing God knows what.
I was at my new job. Remember I told you I was getting a telemarketing job to save money for my GED? No one listens to me.
Well, that definitely explains why you're dressed like a child molester. No offense to your cousin.
Okay. Hi, buddy.
Okay, Laura, what is going on with that other character?
Which one?
The one dancing around with, was that a ferret?
Okay, the actress who plays that character, she told us a story, and she was talking about how she was like dancing naked, and we were like, that has to be in the show. It's incredible. So yeah, no, that was taken from her life, and that's our bunny. There's a bunny on the show.
Oh, it's a bunny.
Yeah.
Okay.
My friend from Florida has a pet bunny, and she tells me a lot of stories about the bunny, and she treats the bunny like a dog.
That's
yeah,
remarkable.
So we put it in the show.
So what's the writing process like?
It was very like, I had one writer that was with me from like day one all the way through to the end of editing, and he was like behind the camera and helping in every way. And other than that, we would bring in writers sort of like more freelance. Like we'd have joke writers come in, we would freelance out some scripts. It was sort of a non-traditional kind of fluid experience. We were trying to figure out the best process.
I love that it's a show about women.
Yeah.
It's run by women.
Yes.
And the ideas come from women.
Yes.
What's that? Are you able to sort of place your accomplishments in this show in the context of 2019 versus, for example, years previous where it was harder for women to make their mark in Hollywood?
I think the sort of explosion of content is allowing for like so many people to be able to tell stories, and it's incredible. And I don't know if that would have been the case for me, 10 years ago. I think the margin of who was making shows was really, really small. And I know that like shows about like poverty and like not set in New York and LA are hard to get made.
Right.
So I'm so thankful that this is happening right now. That this explosion for everyone. I think it's
Yeah,
really
I mean,
positive.
like, there's you, there's Issa Rae, there's Amy Schumer, there's just women putting content out there, and it's because it's written by women. Like, when I was growing up, shows about women were written by men.
Right.
And they were like the perspective of what men thought women acted like.
Yes.
Or the way, like Three's Company or something, or Charlie's Angels. And this is how women talk to each other. And they engage in pillow fights, And it's like, that's what was really happening. And here you have shows like yours that are written from the perspective of women, what it's like to be a woman in America, friendship,
Yeah.
and I just wonder if that's something you think about when you're thinking about the show.
Definitely, and I think like one of the hurdles is that it's hard for women to be flawed, and I think like comedy is so hard to write unless somebody's very flawed. So giving these women like very specific flaws and like I've worked on shows where the women have to be like really well liked and popular and
Right.
pretty and well dressed, and these girls are none of those things.
Yeah.
I mean, they're pretty, but that's about it.
Yeah.
The characters are very like, they're messed up in a
Right.
lot of ways.
In other
And-
words, character. There's character.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, they have flaws and they're trying to grow and they're doing the best they can, but they're not perfect. And I think that is definitely very challenging for people to even visualize in reading the script. They're like, what is this?
Right.
But I think it's becoming easier and easier because more and more shows are out there with women with flaws. And the flaw isn't, that they're sleeping with their friend's boyfriend. The flaw, is that they're insecure or they're scared or they're angry or more human flaws,
Yes. Do you get pushback from executives, males, who say, look, maybe to make her more likable, she should be, the gold digger with a heart of gold, or whatever it is that that guys sometimes think about?
On other shows that I've written, that's happened to me, but not on this show. Thankfully, Pop really, really, really deeply gets this show and has let us every step of the way do what we want to do, and they've been really trusting. But I've definitely worked on other shows where the lead girl has to be perfect. And I'm like, but we were very clear and upfront about these girls are not ever going to be perfect. They're going to be messy and they're going to be failing, and that has to be okay.
And finally, what of your character? I mean, how much of your character is you?
So much. I'm
Really?
so annoying. No, a lot. I think she's very mothering and she's very trying really hard and kind of hopeful, but gets in her own way a lot. And I took a lot of that just from myself growing up and kind of stumbling around. I think the difference is I managed to follow through on some things that she's really struggling with, but we're very similar. Yeah.
All right. Looking forward to this. Congratulations.
Thank you
This
so
is great.
much.
Thanks for coming by.
Yay, thank you.
You can watch the brand new 10-episode series starting tomorrow every Wednesday at 10 p.m. on Pop TV.